Right, thank you for joining me on this presentation today on how to prepare for an interview to overcome nerves and get more offers. Now, we've got around about 40 minutes or so today, and I want to respect your time or want to respect my time. So we're not going to be messing around. We're going to jump straight into the content and get started. Now, this is for you if you're a professional who's got an up and coming interview, or you've had a few interviews and you're fed up because you're not getting the offers that you expected. It's also for you if you've not had an interview in a while and want to get really up to date on your approach so that you can interview with confidence. So in order to boost that confidence, I'm going to show you 4 key areas. I'm going to talk about 4 key areas that you need to prepare. And that the first area that I want to talk about is the key research areas that you need to focus on, essentially. The focus areas that will allow you to prepare for literally any interview you have coming up. When you've completed research in these areas, you'll begin to feel calmer and more confident that you've left no stone unturned, and you'll basically eliminate any overwhelm you might be feeling. Point number 2, I'm going to show you how to prepare an answer to one of the most challenging interview questions. And yes, you need to prepare answers to questions that you might be asked. So I'm also going to show you the must-have ingredients to include in order to answer interview questions, like, for example, tell me about yourself. And I'll provide a framework to answer that particular question, which I'm sure will come up at an interview. And it's a method that's proven for success, and it will help you to really impress the interviewers. And step number 3, or key point number 3, is I'm going to talk to you about the 4 types of questions that you need to be prepared to ask. And yes, you need to ask questions. You must ask questions. And interviews expect you to ask questions. And if you can ask these types of questions, you'll begin to really impress the interview. You'll be able to demonstrate that you've really done your preparation, and you'll really be able to demonstrate you're really interested in the role and the business. And then point number 4, I'll show you some little known and sometimes overlooked areas of preparation that you're probably missing out on, but they will help again to actually boost your confidence and keep you calm, keep those nerves away. And also it includes another area that's probably overlooked, is knowing what to wear on the big day. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can figure out what to wear for the big day. But my ultimate promise to you is that by the end of today's session, you will have essentially a blueprint to enable you to prepare for most of your up and coming interviews. In fact, this blueprint has helped possibly hundreds of people to secure multiple offers for jobs that they went for and interviews that they went for. Now, there's nothing on sale today, and if you stay to the end, I'll send you a free gift, which is essentially a checklist of everything that you'll learn on today's session and everything that you've learned. It's basically a confirmation of everything that you'll learn today. So stay to the end for the free gift. Now, does this sound like you? Are you nervous and anxious because you don't know what to expect, or do you feel as though you're not quite ready and wish you'd done a bit more preparation? Do you really want to leave the interviews with a great impression, and probably more importantly, do you really want to not let yourself down? And when the interview finally begins, do you feel like you're clasping your sweaty palms nervously, anticipating the questions to come? And when the interview is over, do you leave with a sense of resignation, knowing that you've made a mess, or do you feel as though it went okay, but you never hear back from them again? Well, the reason you're in this situation is because you didn't prepare properly for the big day. And even the most inexperienced of interviewers can spot the glaring signs. Now, there are a few key problems that you need to overcome and address. But the great news is once you fix this and understand that there are problems that you need to overcome and begin to actually implement the items on the blueprint that I'm going to talk to you about, you'll have a lot less anxiety and stress on the big day. So basically, you'll be able to focus on enjoying the interview. Yes, I said enjoying the interview, because you can enjoy your interview. You'll have an easily repeatable plan to prepare for each and every interview that you go to. You might be wondering who I am. Well, my name is Alex Wilson Campbell. I'm the founder of the Careers with Purpose Summit and have worked in recruitment for 15 years. I'm an interview coach and job search expert and have coached hundreds of people to successfully secure meaningful work. I also am an expert contributor to online publications. So I've got lots of experience of the good and not so good interview techniques, and members of my mastermind group have experienced a sense of calm and confidence having been part of my coaching programs. Well, that's enough about me. let's get going. But before we get into those areas of preparation, I've got to highlight some of the problems that I was alluding to just a moment ago. And I wonder if you recognize any of them. And after 15 years in recruitment, let me tell you, there's some obvious problems and subtle signs that you just didn't prepare. Here are a few of them. Your answers are not fluent and structured. In fact, you begin to and ah as you deliver your responses. This is a big sign that you didn't prepare and that you're really thinking on your feet. And your body language will be a big giveaway because you'll often have a very pensive look on your face and your eyes may be inclined to the left, looking towards the ceiling, which is a sign that you're trying to trawl your memory for the answer. The next big giveaway is your confidence and your body language. So your body language is withdrawn and closed and you don't appear confident. Now, you probably don't project your voice because it's clear that you're not confident in what you're saying. Confidence is key to your success at interviews, so beware of that. Showing a lack of confidence is a big giveaway when it comes to interviewers assessing how well you've prepared. Now, the best interviewees give structured, clear and concise answers to questions. And this is a big indicator that they've prepared their answers in advance. If your answer is convoluted and goes off in different directions, not to mention it takes a long time for you to deliver your response, then it's clear that you have not prepared properly. It's likely that you're going to get asked questions about the business and the services or the products that they offer, as well as the values and mission of the business. Even if you don't get asked a direct question, you'll be expected to deliver answers and information that shows you're interested and have done research in the business and understand its products, its services, its values and its culture. If your answers and responses make little or no reference to the business and its values and its cultures and services and products, then the interviewer would assume that you don't know enough information or that you're not engaged with what the business is doing. Again, they'll draw the conclusion that you have not prepared sufficiently. The worst thing any interviewee can do when asked the question, "Have you got any questions?" is to respond with a no. That's unless you've asked a number of questions throughout the interview. But if that's not the case, then you need to prepare at least 6 to 8 questions. And I'm going to tell you a bit more about the sorts of questions to prepare a little later on. Don't just ask questions for the sake of it. Really think about the type of question and the reason you need to ask that particular question. Now, are you guilty of this big mistake? Because another obvious sign of a lack of preparation is when an interviewee constantly has to refer to their CV and scan the pages during the interview. This shows a lack of understanding and dedication to your own career because nobody should know their own career better than you. By the time you get to the interview, you should know the key highlights that you need to present in order to demonstrate that there is a synergy between yourself and the role and business in question. In all honesty, you should not even need to have a physical copy of your CV at the interview. In fact, you should commit each important component, achievement, highlight to memory and present it at the interview. If there's one thing that you should take away from today's session, it is that when you go to an interview, you're there to volunteer information that addresses the interviewer's key concerns and problems. Now, I was speaking to a senior manager the other day. He'd just come out of an interview and was providing feedback on his performance. From what he told me, I could immediately gauge how well he had done. In fact, I knew he'd missed a key, important moment to deliver some key information and requirements when delivering his answers to the interviewer's questions. You see, the role required that he was able to manage a team, and at no point in the interview had he made reference to his management and leadership skills. When I asked him why, he said the reason he had not mentioned it was because the interviewer had not asked him about it. Now, that really is a poor excuse, given it's your responsibility as an interviewee to volunteer information and present details of your career that reflect the role for which you are interviewing for. In doing so, you're addressing the interviewer's concerns on your ability to do the job. So the message here is that even if the interviewer does not ask you a direct question about a particular aspect of the role, you need to find a way to include it in your conversation. Then there's that other big problem that needs to be fixed, but it's easily remedied, and that is arriving late. You should only arrive late if there's some sort of extenuating circumstance that you could not avoid and was totally out of your control. But for the most part, arriving late is an absolute no-no. Arriving late or just on time can be perceived as a lack of preparation on your part because the interviewer will assume that you did not plan your journey properly. Okay, now that we've looked at some of the problems, let's just recap ourselves on the 4 areas that we're going to focus on in today's session. So those being 1, the key research areas that you need to focus on. 2, how to prepare an answer to one of the most challenging interview questions. In fact, that will help you to understand the components, the things that you need to think about before you start to prepare answers to other questions as well. Number 3, the 4 categories of questions that you need to be prepared to ask during the interview. And number 4, some of the little known and sometimes overlooked areas of preparation. So let's jump into point number 1, which is the key research areas that you need to cover for each and every interview that you go to. So you need to prepare questions, you need to prepare all your reconnaissance around these key points. So the people within the business, why they do what they do, what their values are, who the leaders are, and what the culture of the business is. Then there's performance, their successes and their challenges that they're facing. And then next are the products and the services, what they do, and an overview of their future plans if you can possibly get that as well. Next is the role. You need to know the role as much as possible, in as much detail as possible, so that you understand completely how you can help them to overcome their challenges now and in the future. Then there's the team, the areas of strength and the opportunities for you to complement the team and the strength that you can add to the team. Having a firm understanding of your strengths is a huge advantage because you can then understand how you can fit into the equation. Most of the information that I've just mentioned is readily available on the internet, in journals, in newspapers, for example. And here are some of the media sources that I would refer to in order to get the information that I just mentioned. So you can retrieve some of this information from company reports, both those that are online and those that are offline, because it will give you an overview of how well the business is performing. And this could really enable you to see how you could address their concerns, but it will help you to decide if you'd want to actually join the business or not. Then you should look at news and PR announcements online. So Google News is a great source of this kind of information. And you can understand the brand, you can understand the profile of the business. You can also gauge if there are any new announcements that the business has made recently around products, around services, around people, or key successes and milestones. These can become topics of conversation during your interview and show that obviously that you have a real interest in what they're doing now and what they'll be doing in the future. So talking about doing research on people, LinkedIn is an absolute goldmine when it comes to doing that kind of research, because you can look at people within the business, and it's obviously important because the people are linked to the successes of the business and why they do what they do. You can actually gain an understanding that way of the values and the culture of the organization. And of course, you really need to research the interviewers. Talking about people, it's important that you know in advance who the interviewers will be, because you'll be able to understand what their role is within the company, what's important to them in terms of taking the team and the business forward. And again, you should use LinkedIn to look at their profiles to get clues on their roles, objectives, and responsibilities, and see if there are any ways in which you could help them to fulfill their own objectives. Let's not forget the company website as well, because that's usually a great source of information about the business and its people. But I'd go a step further and also look at the prospective team members as well. And at the very least, look at the profiles of people who work in a similar role, as I said before. I'd then look more deeply into the business's products, its services, and particularly those that were relevant to the interview. And of course, you need to review the role itself by looking at the job description and person specification and any adverts. You need to research the role so that you understand the demands and the challenges as well as the expertise required. Also, review your CV and resume so that you can pick out any relevant highlights that relate to the role, the people, the team and the business. Tap into your network and find insiders. Speak to people who work there now or who have done so recently and ask questions about the business and the interviewers. For example, the human resources department or recruitment consultants can help you to find that kind of information. And again, it will set you apart because not many people will make the effort and go to the lengths of finding that information and speaking to these kinds of people. Let's look at how to prepare an answer to one of the most challenging interview questions out there. Because now that you've done the detailed research, you'll be in a better position to prepare answers to tough interview questions like, tell me about yourself. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go into answers to other questions, other more common questions. But in a moment, I'm going to show you a great framework to construct an answer to tell me about yourself. I'd also recommend that you prepare answers to typical interview questions like, what do you know about the company? And likely competency-based questions as well. But as I said, we don't have the time today to go into all of them, but this is what you should do. You should really prepare. When I say prepare, I don't mean just think about the answers to the questions. I mean write them down, draft your answers, and refine the answers so that you have an opportunity to practice responses so that you're ready for the big day. Yes, preparation is key when you're drafting answers to some of these typical questions. So, for example, you need to understand the values and the culture of the business so that you can determine first and foremost if the role and business would be a match for you and a place in which you could be happy. If it turns out there's no match at all, then you should really question whether or not you should attend the interview and move on to apply for a role that is closely aligned to your values. From a personal point of view, I remember that I was able to gain a real rapport and break the ice by demonstrating in my answer that there was a values and a cultural alignment with myself and the business that I interviewed with. Another point of preparation and research is before you provide your answer, is that you need to understand the role and how it fits in the team and the business. You'll then be able to pick out the skills, strengths and expertise that you possess which match the requirements of the role. So extend your research so that you have a full understanding of the industry in which the business operates. Again, this is important because you'll be able to showcase and articulate relevant industry experience when you give your answer so that you can then demonstrate that there's an affinity between yourself and the role. Don't overlook the importance of preparing and understanding yourself. A lot of the things that I'm talking about in today's session are things that I did when I went to interview myself and had great success with. I recommend that you go on to understanding the most relevant points of your career and the highlights. So that means reviewing your CV, reviewing the roles that you've done and what you'd achieved for each role. You can then pick out relevant career highlights to present during the interview. And the last thing you want to be doing is showing up to the interview with your CV and reciting points from your CV from top to bottom. That would take a long time to do. It would be way too long to do that. And it would demonstrate a lack of preparedness on your part and a lack of understanding of what the interviewer is asking for. Researching and understanding the interviewers is another key part of your preparation for answering an interview question. It's really important to understand and acknowledge the most important concerns of the people interviewing you so that you can just relay the fact that you could be a potential solution to their concerns and challenges. One great source of their concerns and challenges is the job description, the job advert, or the job brief, because they'll highlight the key requirements of the team and the business and sometimes put the concerns in order of importance. For example, if managing a growing team is a key challenge, then your answer should highlight your ability as an excellent manager. If launching a new website is in the pipeline, your answer should stipulate your ability to do just that. The key here is to pick out the most pressing and significant concerns so that you can begin to put the interviewer's mind at ease and show them that you know and understand what is most important to them. As I said, drafting your answer is important preparation. By now, you're probably thinking to yourself, how can one answer require so much effort and preparation, and how can you fit all of this into one succinct answer? Well, where tell me about yourself is concerned, the answer is, first of all, you need to make a draft of your answer to the question. Believe me, it's not going to be perfect the first time around. It's probably not going to be succinct and clear on the first draft either. But the key here is to make sure that you have it in black and white. before you go any further and attend the interview. You can always refine it as you go along. Bear in mind that your answer needs to be brief, and in a moment I'm going to give you a great formula to answer this particular question. But remember, there's not a one-size-fits-all formula, and there will often be circumstances in which you will need to play it by ear and gauge the responses of the interviewer when you provide your answer. The formula doesn't cover all scenarios, it just gives you a starting point and an appreciation of what may be required. The key point that I want to put across is that the answer should be brief. When you practice it, aim to keep it under 1 minute. From time to time, when I felt that the interviewer was not satisfied or needed more from my answer, I'd be more proactive and ask the interviewer, are there any other specific points that you'd like me to talk about? But more often than not, I could cover the interviewer's concerns and questions in my original answer. On the other hand, talking too much would only serve to alienate the interviewers, because it would demonstrate that you're not focused and prepared and that you don't understand what is important to them. I've witnessed it myself as an interviewer, where interviewees will essentially rehash their CV in a monologue fashion and they ignore the purpose of the interview. Don't do that, because the interviewers will likely become bored and begin to draw conclusions towards your lack of suitability for the role. Okay, so now I want to share my formula, a personal formula that I use for answering the interview question, tell me about yourself. And it's the same formula I use to teach my interview coaching students. You don't necessarily need to structure your answer in the same order as presented here. And the point is that you need to include all the elements given here so that your answer covers all bases. So element number 1, you say who you are and you talk about what you do as a professional and highlight the relevant credentials that you apply to your job application. Next, there's business fit, where you essentially are saying why you do what you do. And the research you've done prior to your interview should indicate there is a good degree of cultural and values alignment. If that is the case, you need to articulate this to the interviewers because it will contribute to their decision making. Then there's expertise. It's not enough to simply state your skills and expertise and strengths. You'll also need to give a couple of highlights of achievements from your career as backup to differentiate yourself from many other candidates with similar experience. And then there's the interest. You need to show that you're interested, basically. Don't underestimate the importance of this one. And remember that you can show interest through your actions and by stating in no uncertain terms that you are, in fact, interested. When you put it all together, your answer might read something like this. I'm a marketing manager who over the last 8 years has managed teams, large budgets and international consumer marketing projects that have resulted in an average year-on-year profit growth of 10%. I've got an excellent track record of helping small to medium businesses grow their brand and audience through deploying effective through-the-line campaigns that have improved engagement and increased sales of key products. And as an example, online sales of Widget X during my tenure at impressive company number 2 totaled £2.5 million, which was an all-time record. Teamwork is something I enjoy, and I love the fast and fluid environment, and customer satisfaction is an important factor in my decision making. My current role is going really well, and I've been able to galvanize the team, but I'm ready for this challenge, especially because I already use and endorse impressive Company 2's products and services. As you can see and hear from my answer there, it's not very fluent, it's not very concise because I've not practiced it. So once you've got it written down, it's not necessarily that you need to say it word for word, but you at least need to get the key elements in there and have them nice and fluid and nice and fluent for the day of the interview. Now let's go on to the 4 types of questions that you need to be prepared to ask. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, I would regularly recommend that you prepare the 4 core questions. And now that you've done your research, you'll be in a position to do just that. Remember that the interview can help you to understand whether the business is going to be a good fit for you or not. And with that in mind, don't fall in the trap of asking questions that focus solely on the role. Instead, you should focus your preparation on creating questions in the 4 separate categories I'm about to share with you. And I recommend that you have 2 questions for each category. So in total, you'll have about 6 to 8 questions prepared in advance. Now, having these questions will not only help you to really do your due diligence and understand the business a lot more, they'll also show the interviewer that you've really done your preparation and that you have a real interest in the role and the business. So the first category of questions are what I call business-related questions. They could be around new products and services that the business has and the business's potential growth strategy for the future. For example, you could ask, where do you see the business in the next 5 years? Or what new products and services are being launched in the next year or so? Asking business-related questions will help you to understand the ambitions of the business, but as well as that, they'll help you to understand whether or not the products or services are something that you really like and would like to get involved with. So the next category of questions are what I call role-related questions that can help you to understand the career path of the particular role, but also where the role fits in the actual team. For example, you might ask, what does the career path for the marketing manager look like in the next 5 years or so? Or what are the training opportunities for the marketing manager role? Again, asking these types of questions at interview can help you to understand whether the manager has thought about the career path for the particular role and if there are any training opportunities available for you. So let's move on to the third category of questions. You can also ask team-related questions, which will help you to find out the ambitions for the team and how the team works together. So you might ask, where does my role fit within the team and what will the team look like within the next year or so? You can ask them about how the team works together as a unit. Not only can team-related questions help you to understand the hiring manager's passion for the team, but they can help you to understand whether you would be a team fit or not. Then the final category of questions, category number 4. The final category of questions are people-related questions, which should be aimed at the people who are interviewing you and specifically the hiring manager. You can ask some questions to find out about their management style or why they joined the business themselves and what they most like about working there and what they know about the values of the business. These sorts of questions will help you to understand the hiring manager's views of the business, but also help you to determine if you will thrive under their management style. So there you have it. Those are the 4 core questions that you need to ask at every interview. And remember, prepare 2 at least for each category. So you've got 6 to 8 in total. Remember that they're just core questions. So if there are any other questions that you need to ask or you need clarification on anything, then you should follow up with a follow-up question. And of course, remember that you should always ask closing questions at your interview as well. Now, I just wanted to share with you an example from one of my mastermind coaching candidates. Her name was Jen. She was lacking in confidence, she said she went away feeling a sense of, feeling a real buzz. Beforehand, she'd been lacking in confidence, particularly because she'd been made redundant from her previous job. And obviously being made redundant was a very lowering experience for her, at least. She felt she'd been cast on the scrap heap. And the advice that I'm just sharing with you today, this advice in terms of preparing herself for an interview, took her to the next level and helped her feel a sense of worth and really helped her to understand that she had something to offer an employer. Now I just want to share with you some of those little known and sometimes overlooked areas of preparation that I mentioned earlier on. And one of the first ones, or one of the key ones, is talking to and informing family and friends. Because I don't know about you, but my mood and expressions at home would often change as my interview approached. I'd become more nervous and sometimes a little more moody than usual. And of course, bad moods and nerves can affect those around you. But if they don't know that you're nervous, or they don't know why you're nervous and moody, there's nothing that they can do to help you. So I would often prepare and talk to my loved ones to let them know that I had an interview coming up. I'd get a pep talk from my mom, for example, or from my other half or my sister, and they'd be a lot more understanding of my mood and support me in my preparation. And then there's the weather. Don't underestimate the importance of finding out what the weather forecast is going to be like, but it's never 100% reliable. Although it is worth having a glance at a prediction for the day of your interview. If it's going to rain, then you need to make sure, obviously, that you've got an umbrella so that you don't get drenched. There's nothing more embarrassing and disconcerting than turning up to an interview soaked from head to toe, because it just takes your mind off your preparation, which hinders your performance. You also need to find out exactly where the interview is going to take place. Have you ever been in a situation in which you've had an interview at a company that has several offices and you've ended up at the wrong one? Even if you've not been in that situation, it's important to know exactly where your interview will be so that you don't turn up to the wrong location. Have a look at Google Maps or Street Map using the postcode provided by the interviewer, but don't forget to double check with the interviewer exactly where the interview will take place. I don't know about you, but I always find that my mind and nerves are more under control and more at ease when I know what's coming. In that case, I would always try to find out, and I recommend that you always try to find out the format of the interview. For that reason, I would want to know, and I recommend that you should know, whether the interview would be done by a panel or by an individual. You'd be meeting, greeting people. Well, will there be more than one person? Will it be an assessment centre? Will there be a psychometric test on the day? Can you expect a written test, etc., etc.? If you know what the format is, then you can prepare in advance by having mock interviews or taking relevant tests or having a session with a personal coach to get their expert opinion and advice. Don't underestimate the importance of self-preparation. And again, from a personal point of view, I would want to make sure that I looked my best. So I'd make sure that I knew exactly what I was going to wear. I'd iron my shirt. I'd polish my shoes and lay everything out ready to put on the next morning. Of course, knowing what to wear requires research in itself, so ask the right questions of the right people to understand what the interview dress code is. Have a look at the company website and social media profiles to understand the typical dress code of that particular organisation. Another important part of self-preparation is trying to be as positive as possible to allay any nerves. I would speak to positive people who I knew would be able to boost my confidence and increase my energy, make me laugh, so that I could be in the right frame of mind and attend the interview in the belief that they need me more than I need them. I'd also speak to my personal mentors and my coach to understand and glean their perspective on what needs to be done. I would also look at myself in the mirror, literally, and practice positive expressions and get a feeling of how my face looked when I was smiling or happy, and understand my body language at particular moments. Now, mock interviews are a useful exercise to glean feedback on body language and facial expressions, as well as interview preparation, especially if they're recorded. Another tool, so that's basically another tool worth considering in your preparation. Sleep is another important factor in your preparation, so don't underestimate its value and the fact that it can aid performance interview. I personally need 8 hours sleep to be at my best throughout the day because I usually end up feeling tired towards the end of the day. There's nothing worse than feeling tired towards the end of the day knowing that you've got an interview coming up after work. So know what your optimum level is and make sure that you make an effort to get a restful night's sleep. So there you have it. Those are the main focus areas for you, for your blueprint in terms of preparation for your next interview. If you can fulfill all these things, if you can research all these areas, then you will be on the way, or at least on the path to having a really successful interview. But the last thing you want to do when the going gets tough is to quit. And one reason people don't fulfill their career goals or don't reach levels that they dream of is because they quit reaching for their ambitions or become content in their job. People also quit because they become tired, confused, directionless, or fearful. But having a lack of results in a job search is probably the biggest reason that many job seekers don't follow through and quit before they've reached any tangible results. But what can you do to stop from quitting before you have tangible results? Accountability. And what's the best form of accountability for a job seeker or career changer? A solid support system. Personal and professional support can give you an edge over other job seekers, and it can ensure that you've got the accountability to drive you to getting your next job and fulfilling your career ambitions. And here are some examples of what support can offer you. So coaching and mentoring can give you a structured guidance, plans and support, as well as prepare you for real scenarios and tell you what employers expect. Fellow job seekers can share their job search experiences with you, good and the bad, so that you don't feel as though you're alone. And mentors or professionals who've achieved success can give you anecdotal information and case studies on how they've achieved their success. So that professional support and coaching, it can be a real relief to speak to people who are going through or have experienced what you're going through in terms of your career and your job search. By talking to professionals and fellow job seekers, you can get anecdotal pointers and share your challenges and frustrations. And a coach can be really helpful because they can give you an advantage in the sense that they've either done what you're working towards or they've helped others to achieve what you're working towards. So just make sure that you communicate with people you know well or people who you trust to give you that support that you need, because it will give you the accountability to deter you from quitting before you reach your short-term and long-term goals. So today I promise to show you key research areas that you need to focus on, how to prepare an answer to one of the most challenging interview questions. I also showed you 4 types or 4 categories of questions that you must ask at every interview. And I also showed you some little known and sometimes overlooked areas of preparation. And here's what you need to do next. Undertake that detailed research in the areas that I suggested. So the people, the performance, the products and services, the role, the team, having a firm understanding of yourself, including your strengths, skills and values. Then you need to prepare answers to common interview questions well in advance and practice them. And next, always ask those 4 categories of questions and closing questions. The other thing that you need to do next is prepare thoroughly down to the last detail in terms of knowing what to wear. And something I'd add to that is you need to get a coach and have a support system at the very least in place so that you can reduce the likelihood of quitting. Now you have a choice to make, because I just taught you exactly how to prepare for your interview to eliminate your nerves and exceed interviewers' expectations so you can get more job offers. So you can either sit back and say, this is just another webinar, just another day. Go back and forget about it. But if you do that, you're going to stay stuck more than likely. Now, you know why you came to this webinar. You came here for a reason. I believe it's because you know that right now your approach is not working. You can either take what I've taught you today, stay stuck and continue to struggle for the next year or 2 years or 5 years, or if you want this year to be the year that you finally have a breakthrough in your career, so that you can have a happier life in the job of your dreams, or even if you simply want to get back into the world of work, then this is what I have for you. My team and I have set aside some time to talk to you about getting this approach working right now for you, because everybody is different. Now, there's no cost for this session, but you must be absolutely committed to putting in the work to achieve the results and have the motivation to take action. Here's why I'm doing this. On the call, we'll help you to plan out exactly what steps you'll need to take and in what order, so you can finally begin to get some offers on the table. If we think we're a good fit to work together, we'll invite you to work with us on implementing your plan. So simply click the link to apply now or visit the website and schedule an appointment. And remember, we have just a few spaces remaining this week and we only book a limited number of spaces per week. So book yours now. And I can't wait to talk to you to see how I can help you out and start working with you. Bye for now.